So what's going on, guys? I am Black Ops Amazing. Welcome back to another zombies video on the channel, where today we are back with a Q&A, the series where I take your questions from the comment section below to do with the zombie storyline, Easter eggs, and I answer. What the f is going on? Okay, random advert started playing. Where was I? Welcome back to the video. We are here with another Q&A. Let's get into this. So the first question of today from Tyler says, BOA, unclassified, what does the map mean in the war room? Keep up the good work, you're amazing. So down in the war room unclassified, you can find this projected on the screen. You can see it is a map. There are a bunch of different symbols and little logos on there, arrows and dots. But what exactly they mean or they are showing is a good question. I remember when a lot of people first saw this, we thought possibly this is hinting towards a future DLC being in Atlantis. Because of these arrows and these dots pointing to the center of the ocean, this could have been the location of Atlantis. We know now that isn't the case, but what they are showing, I don't really know. I can't think of anything in terms of storyline from radios or ciphers, messages that we saw in Classified that could relate to this. I mean, if we just try and identify these locations, this one here is in the Atlantic Ocean. Nothing here, as far as I can remember, relates to zombies. This arrow and circle here looks like it is located in Brazil. The only thing I could say for that is there was a quote from Dempsey all the way back in The Giant where he said he had seen the Pack-a-Punch machine in Brazil. From what we know, Dempsey's never been there, so that was a strange quote from him in the first place. But the Pentagon have marked this location, and then this circle here is somewhere in Europe. It really could be anywhere from Poland to Slovakia, Hungary, Austria. Those are a few locations that were related to zombies, especially Poland being a part of Nazi Germany, and Austria, of course, is the location of Der and Drache. And then these dots and arrow are just in the ocean behind Madagascar. There are a couple of small islands here, but nothing that relates to zombies. And then finally there is a dotted cross that is just off the coast of Australia. So as to what these mean, I really couldn't tell you. It's kind of a strange one. Possibly these were locations of zombie outbreaks. Maybe the ones in the oceans are on ships or something. It's difficult to say, and this kind of reminds me of a map that we saw in Alpha Omega. It was this one up on screen now, and you can see there are tons of locations that have been marked. If we start off going from left to right, the first thing marked is the Hanford campus, or the application testing campus. Of course, this is Green Run or Transit, a place where Broken Arrow operated, and Alpha Omega, where you find this map, is where Broken Arrow worked as well. Just below that we have Camp Edward itself, which is also the MK Alpha operations or the mining operations, which we know is true. In the Nuketown loading screen we can see they were digging for element 115 here, and then next to that, just up the road, is Groom Lake, the 115 depository, and the Moon teleporter link site. So that's of course the location where you start off in Moon, or where you teleport to Pack-a-Punch in Classified. There's really nothing else to explain there. And then as we move to the other side of America, in Washington DC, this is the location of Broken Arrow's headquarters, and that is going to be the location of Classified, which is the Pentagon. And then moving along to Europe, the first marker is in London, where it says London office. Again, we've never been to London in zombies, although we have heard about it once in the storyline, which was Der and Drache. There was a newspaper that told us about an outbreak here, but we never knew that Broken Arrow had an office here, so that's really interesting. And then just below that in France we have the dig site, or the potential gateway. Of course, that is Origins. And then going over to Russia, where we have another marker. This one says Time Paradox, potential gateway, referring to Tag der Toten, I assume. And then finally, we have Province 22, which also says weapon testing and BIOS testing, which we know is Die Rise in China. Which is cool because something I didn't know is they were actually testing BIOS here and creating weapons. So there we go. This one's pretty self-explanatory, whereas the one that you can find in Classified, I don't know what those locations are marking out other than possibly zombie outbreaks. But as always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. The second question from Anonymous says, hey BOA, why doesn't Dempsey freak out when he sees Peter's body in Shinonuma? Now this is something I've never really noticed or even thought about. However, it is a relevant question because before Shinonuma, Dempsey and Peter McCain were good friends. In fact, they worked together in the previous map, which was Verrucht, or at least Dempsey went on a mission to find Peter after he went missing. We already know they were good friends because we hear in Alpha Omega they have a conversation between each other. When Peter is trapped inside of the mannequin, it is clear from what they say they were friends. So before the map Shinonuma in Verrucht, after Dempsey along with John, Smokey and Paxton went searching for Peter and never found him, why in the map after this, which is Shinonuma, which even in terms of timeline takes place after Verrucht, because we know some maps don't, Dempsey knows who this person is, so why in game doesn't he recognise him? Why doesn't he say a quote or anything when he can see his friend's dead body hanging from the roof? I mean, during the time when these maps came out in World at War, the storyline wasn't as developed, so maybe they wouldn't have thought about it back then, which is understandable. But even in these Zombies Chronicles maps, even in the Shinonuma remake, Dempsey still doesn't say anything. The other thing I can think of is this is down to element 115. We know that one of its side effects is memory loss, and we actually know before this, in between the time of Verrucht and Shinonuma, Dempsey was taken as a test subject for Richthofen where he was experimented on and basically his memory was wiped. So that could be the reason why Dempsey doesn't recognise his friend, because he was kidnapped by Group 935, taken to Siberia with Richthofen where he experimented on him along with Takio, Nikolai and Pablo, ended up wiping their memory and then became super soldiers for Richthofen. The next question from Caleb says, what happened to the elemental staffs after the end of Zombies? I believe you're talking about the originals, not the replicas that Maxis made in Origins, because I've spoken about them ones many times. I've also made videos on the originals before, but not since the Zombies storyline is finished, and we have had more information since then. But anyway, what happened to the original elemental staffs? The last time or the first time we ever saw them was in the Revelations ending, when our characters get sent back to the Great War. We see them standing on the mound with the elemental staffs in the air, and then in the next map, in terms of timeline, what takes place chronologically, which is Origins, those staffs, the original ones at least, are not to be seen again. So even though we are playing as the same set of characters, Primis in the Great War are the same characters we see in Origins, although there is a 600-year gap. What happened to the original, very powerful elemental staffs? And also, am I saying that right? Is it staffs or staves? I don't know. But what we do know is, back in the Great War, at some point in time, Primis did die. Because the Great War takes place in the 1300s, Origins takes place in 1914, or at least that's when it starts, and then we go over to 1918. There is a 600+ year gap between these two maps, so of course the characters couldn't have lived that long. What we do know is, during the 1300s, Primis died and then were reborn again 600 years later, where they meet up in Origins. But that doesn't really explain what happened to the original staffs. Yes, they wouldn't have taken them with them. If they died, more than likely they would have just been left wherever they died. They would have been left in the 1300s, maybe somewhere on the battlefield of the Great War. But also, as part of the Broken Cycle, when Pablo Marinus travels back to 1300 to help Richthofen break the cycle, he defends him against the zombie horde as Richthofen opens up a teleportation mechanism and travels to Blood of the Dead. But just before he does that, Pablo gives Great War Richthofen the elemental gem off the fire staff. If these elemental staffs belong to Primis in the first place, first off, why didn't Richthofen still have his during the Great War as part of the Broken Cycle? And also, why did Pablo have parts of one of them? It doesn't really make sense. These staffs belong to Primis, yet as part of the Broken Cycle, and it could have been the same for the actual cycle, at some point they no longer have them. Did they lose them? Did they become broken? Why didn't Richthofen still have his staff when he was travelling to Blood of the Dead? I don't really know. If Pablo has the elemental gem, did they break? It's a strange one, it really is. So what happened to the original staffs? It's a little bit of a mystery, and not even our other Zombies characters know, because in Origins, Maxis made replicas of the originals because they can never be found. No one knows where they went. The next question says, why can zombies breathe on the moon? Well, just like many things in Zombies, this hasn't been explained to us. The first thing I would say is, well, zombies are dead. I would then ask, do zombies breathe? If you're dead, do they actually breathe? That's a very strange but valid question, because if they don't, then surely they'd be perfectly fine surviving on the moon, right? Then if they do need to breathe, how are they able to do it on the moon? Since they are able to not talk but make noises, groan and grunt, surely they would have to be able to breathe to do that. And then I would also say, well, how can we hear the zombies scream? When you're outside on the moon, you can't hear sound. That's another question. I think this is just one of those ones that we have to say, it's a game, it's game logic. There's no actual storyline reasoning behind it. One of the other strange things was in one of the radios, we heard that there was a rat up on the moon. How did that get there? And you could ask the same question. How was it able to breathe? I think this is just one of those things we have to let go and forget and throw all reasoning out of the window. Or you could say they are dead, they don't need to breathe, and that's why they can survive on moon without a helmet. There we go, guys. That is it. That is all I have for you for today's video. As always, hopefully you have enjoyed. If you have, a like rating would be appreciated. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel to stay up to date with the latest zombies videos here. Leave any questions you have in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.